Hey guys, so before we start this video, I just want to let you guys know that everything in this video is going to be opinionated. So if you guys disagree with me, please take it with a grain of salt. You guys are pretty amazing damn near all the time when it comes to that shit. So yes, today we're going to be talking about Game of the Year, because I've seen a bunch of things on Twitter and whatnot, and I just watched a podcast where that was the focal point, and I just want to talk about it. So it's going to be a quick little video with some gameplay in the background. I just want to get you guys' initial thoughts as well. What we're going to be talking today, guys, about is Game of the Year. So right now, people are saying that Game of the Year is a mixture between Fallout 4 and The Witcher: The Wild Hunt. Both amazing choices and amazing games. But we're also going to be talking about just games in general and reviews and all that kind of stuff. And to start things off pretty bluntly, I fucking hate reviews so much. I'm talking so much. The reason why is because games in general are very much based on your perception of that game. For instance, someone could love FIFA like to death, and say this guy's a reviewer, and say he goes to review something like Skyrim or something like The Witcher or something like Mad Max or anything like that, just a massive game that is super big and somewhat overwhelming, especially if he's only played that. He's going to shit on that game or go the other direction and just not understand it or not really care to understand it. And there you go, he'll judge that game poorly because that is not his thing. Now, some people would fight and say that, well, a reviewer is that he knows that he can't do that. He knows that he has to step back and review the game in its entirety, regardless without becoming biased or giving your own opinion on something. Now that to me is damn near impossible. No matter what you do, no matter how you respond, you're always going to put something, a little bit of yourself into what you're thinking and what you're going to say. So to me, that's what generally every review is. Every review is that they don't like this game or that they like this game, and then they associate a number to it, which I freaking hate too. To me, it's so annoying because when you're looking for games and when you're like watching a review and stuff like that, and then they say, I give the audio a 4, I'll give the cutscenes and overall graphics a 7, and then I'm like, whoa, okay, well, what does that fucking mean? Like, that doesn't help me at all. Like, I know the audio is a 4, okay, is that, so what's the max 5, so that means it's really good? Yeah, it's almost perfect. Okay, so that's cool. The graphics are 7, so that means the audio is, okay, the audio is shit, then, oh god. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. Nor is a number a tangible for an enjoyable experience, sorry. So that's why I really generally hate reviews, not just reviews, but straight up numbered reviews. Like, this game gets a 72 on so-and-so website. Now, I can't stand the number part of it because, again, there's no, like, what, a 70 is good, but then I thought some people say a 70 is not worth $70, you know what I mean? Like, it's worth, if the game's at 70%, wait for the price to drop down and then go get it, dude. Boom. And I'm like, well, okay, like that kind of makes sense, I guess, but still, I'd rather just hear someone say, I enjoyed the game. I like the game because of this, if, in that way, I can hear what this, and this is, and I can be like, oh, well, I like those things too, or that sounds interesting, I will get the game, not, this I rate a 7, this I rate an 8, and this I rate, like, no, it just gets in my head and it confuses me, and it doesn't give me what you enjoyed, because that's what I care about. I don't care if the audio is a 6, because that's all based on your perception, so that's already garbage. So I just want to know if it is good or it is bad. It's simple, and also, just tell me if something is good and something is bad. I don't know. So the other thing with reviews is, we're really talking about reviews. We're supposed to be talking about the freaking Game of the Year. Anyways, quick little rant on reviews. So the other thing that I don't really understand is when games review other games and this other game gets a really low review when another game gets an amazing review. So for instance, picture an open world game that has like 200 hours worth of gameplay in that. And then picture a game like, what's a game? The Uncharted Remastered Collection. Boom. That's a bad example because that has tons of hours of gameplay in it. Thief, Halo, bunch of those games that are really, they're games and they're good, but you're comparing it to a game like, I think I used the example of Just Cause 3, which I haven't played yet. And Thief, for instance, not that it's a bad game, but just that it has generally like 20 hours in it, and say you make it like an 80 on this website that reviews games, and then Just Cause gets 72, or whatever, I'm not sure what the actual score is, I think it's around there, that gets 72, but yet Just Cause has like 200 plus hours, and so say if you're in school or paying off college loans or whatever, you're gonna need to buy a game that's gonna hold you off for a while. So that score doesn't make sense with the amount of content in that game. And some people could say, well, it's quality, not quantity. Well, then they'll say something like, with Thief, for instance, they'll be like, this is good, and this is good. And then they'll be like, okay, well, let me open up this game that has 200 hours worth of content. Boom, it has this, that, that. And they'll be like, well, and it's like, well, no, because it's not just quantity, it's just that there's so many other things that can become a spark. Whereas the other one has maybe a bunch of little sparks, but then this one has so much stuff in it that it has a chance for any one of these things to be a spark, to make that thing one of the high points in the game. And to me, that's the most unfair thing, is when a reviewer gives a game like Just Cause, which most people look at like, oh, this is a 70, I'm gonna hold off until the price drops, despite this game taking 3 years to make, which is irrelevant. You know, the time of the game makes it's good to know that people worked hard on it, but at the end of the day, you're buying a product, it doesn't really matter. So that I would agree, you could just kind of put that away. But again, like I said, there's such mass quantity here, density, to where the other game doesn't really have that. But yet you're giving this game more, like giving Thief a higher score than that, which again, I'm not sure if that's actually true. And the reason why I use the example as I pull apart Just Cause 3, because most reviewers are not going to spend 200 hours in that game to review it. Which I think is abysmal. I hate that so much, because most reviewers will spend like 20, 30 hours in a game getting a feel to it, which is stupid, because any reviewer that reviews a movie spends they watch that entire movie, and then they have the verification to say that it's good or bad because you've seen the entire thing. And I know that's a thing where reviewers will only spend like 30 hours in a game and then review it, opposed to spending the maximum, like doing everything. They won't do that. The reason why I know that that's a thing and exists is because that's what happened to Destiny. A reviewer only spent like, 5 hours or so reviewing the game, and then they're like, okay, it's all the same, it's terrible, it's bad, and etc, etc. And people were like, what? Did you even play the game? And they didn't. They only played a very small portion of the game and then ridiculed it because that it wasn't their type of game, or that they did not understand it. They didn't bother to understand it. And again, to me, a reviewer, this is really important to me, and I wish a game company would say this, because I do feel like they're thinking it, is a lot of times they're trying to sell to a certain audience, and that's something that's really important. So say if Bethesda, for instance, they make Fallout, they're trying to sell to a first person and an open world type of audience. That's where they're trying to sell the game to. That's who they're trying to sell the game to. And then you have a game like, again, a reviewer that reviews like games like Uncharted, real kind of linear, contained games. And then you have him reviewing that, and then he doesn't really talk about that. Like, he doesn't talk about the fact that if you are into open world games and first person games with pretty compelling things, a lot of compelling things, they won't talk about that. And that to me is such a shame, because that is so damn important. Because again, like one of the things the reviewer said when they opened up the game was, if you like open world games and first person games, this game is for you. And then I'd watch the other hand of the review and I'd hear what the positive negatives and the negatives are. But anyways, back to some reviewers, I'm sure there's the others that don't do this, but back to some reviewers actually not seeing the entire game and talking about that, the fact that there is so much content here, opposed to the other thing that they just reviewed a week ago, saying that it was a 90, and then giving this one that has such massive amount of content, and not even fully experiencing that content, but still saying that they have the worthwhileness to actually talk about it and say that it's good or bad. Like, do you think a reviewer, a movie reviewer, would be able to get away with watching the first 30 minutes of a movie and then being like, okay, I can judge it and tell you what it is? No, you have to watch the entire thing. And if you're going to be a reviewer, then your job is to experience the entire thing. Same thing with games, even same thing with Fallout. And so that annoys me with just the process itself and them not even talking about that. And the other thing is the fact that they don't really talk about that that's the game, this game, when it comes to open world games, if you're down with open world games and you like them, then this is for you. That's why I love, and I'm so fucking pumped, and I'm happy that it's finally happening, is that developers are starting to talk to fans of games that are that type of archetype of games that are open world games. They start to give them copies of the game. That way they can talk about the fact that they enjoyed that game. They can show why they enjoyed it through their experience, and that is why I love that. And that's not me hyping up Let's Plays, or that's anything. That's me hyping up people that make guides on how to do certain things. That's me hyping up people that get the game 2 weeks early, because they're able to make these videos for us and show us these things and show us the reasons why this game is nice and how to get these certain things. Again, showcasing the game in a light that is best portrayed for that archetype of game. Anyway, so that's why I'm not a fan of reviews that much. But anyways, back. I say anyways, knowing that that was a real long, well, not long so much as it could be shorter. Anyways, so back to the nominations for the year. There's a bunch of other ones that are nominated, and one that comes to mind that I was hyped to hear that got nominated for something was Ori and the Blind Forest. I fucking loved that game to tears. It was amazing. But the other thing I want to talk about is the two main nominees that people are saying that are going to go head to head. One I'm pretty sure was Bloodborne, maybe. Sorry if it wasn't. It may not have been. But the two obvious ones were Witcher and Fallout 4. Now this completely, again, games are for certain people. That's the thing. So again, some people will be diehard into fantasy. In that case, clearly Witcher is the one for you. And then another person will be down with like goofy, futuristic sci-fi world. Which, there you go, that's Fallout for you. So again, to say one is the best is completely biased in a certain direction. So anyways, that's why I'm kind of like, eh. But anyways, the other thing is, when it comes to Game of the Year, it's not like the Oscars and shit. At least I don't think it is. From everything that I've heard, it's basically people that are journalists and people that are in the industry and etc. come together and they just talk. And they basically say that this game deserves, best sound or whatever. Again, those things that I don't really like because they're in reviews. Anyways, so they say that has the best. But then again, not all of those people have played every game that came out this year. So, for instance, some person may be like, okay, so this game didn't have the best reviews or whatever, but its soundtrack was amazing. And then another dude will be like, oh, well, I never listened to the soundtrack at all. And I'm like, okay, but that doesn't make it any less good. And then they're like, well, no, because it's not really known and it's not really, out there. It's, they'll be doing that. And that to me is like crazy that I've heard all over the place that that's a thing that exists and happens. And that just shocks me and baffles me. So that's why I'm like, oh God, like, oh geez, I don't want to, these Game of the Year awards kind of just dropped a bunch in my mind. The fact that is the process, and it makes sense because not everyone can play every game. Not everyone has jobs and etc. So I'm not faulting them for that. Just the fact that no one can play every game, so no one can really judge every game because of the fact that they haven't played it. Again, not faulting for that. That's just kind of an obvious thing. That's just like, oh, well, yeah, because then another game that no one really played, but maybe has the best soundtrack that they've ever heard collectively, if everyone heard it, might have won. So that's something that like really resonated with me. And I'm like, God, that's kind of wonky. Yeah, you wouldn't think that'd be in the thing. By the way, if you're wondering why there's no face cam, it's because just the face shit. Just my hair just woke up. Not really just woke up. It's been a long day. Don't feel like looking at a camera with lights in my face. Just saying. Anyway, back to Fallout and Witcher. Again, this is not so much as me being like, this is the better game, because again, they're completely based on what you like more. Fantasy, sword action, etc., or straight up guns and etc. The one thing I will say though is, which is an easier game to get into, definitely would say Fallout. The reason why is because it's just point and shoot and done. And then the perks are really easy. If you want to get down to that one, you just click into it a bunch. There's no upgrading, or there's a little bit of upgrading in the game, which is pretty self-explanatory. You open up a thing, it shows what you need, etc. The Witcher, shit, it shows you how to make a potion, and you're like, I have no idea how to get half this shit. You know what I mean? So that's like, to me, it's more an open, easier to enter game, which is weird because I heard some reviews where people were like, if you like past Fallout games, you will like this one, which is obvious. But then they were saying that like people that are new wouldn't be able to jump in, which I disagree with immensely because I say this is the best Fallout game that's come out that you can jump into. Including New Vegas, Fallout 3, and etc. In terms of art style, that's kind of an iffy gray line with me because I do believe that Bethesda went with a cartoonish look to their thing, just a tiny bit, just to. Honestly, I think that's the best move that any company can make, is give a tiny bit of a cartoon or stylized look to their game. That kind of makes that game a little bit immortal, in my opinion. Like, for instance, if you were to go back and play Borderlands 1, max every setting on your PC, it would look like a game that could very well come out in our day and age, and it could be a pass. Would it be a great HD pass? No. But since it has that special art style, it kind of gets extra lifespan on it. Gives a little bit more lifespan to it, which I think is amazing. I think it's amazing, great. Whereas The Witcher goes for a really, HD, God rays, everything is like, kind of really detailed to a crazy degree. and etc. And the way you move on the horse is really lifelike. The hair is moving and all other shit. That's really graphically intense. But in, I would say, 3 years, that's gonna look like kind of brr. And I think honestly, and this is my opinion, I think Fallout would look a little bit less because the fact that it is, if you were to look at the faces from Fallout 1 in like a quick zoomed in dialogue tree. And then you go to look at the faces in Fallout, you can definitely tell that there's a cartoonish not like heavy cartoon, but like a little bit of cartoon sprinkled on that, or again, stylized, I should say, more not just cartoon, on the game itself. And again, that's just why I kind of think that, is because I do believe the cartoony things kind of never really age, or if they do age, they age really really slowly. Now, the one thing that I would, I can't say, I haven't played enough of Fallout 4, and I've been playing a lot of Fallout 4, is when it comes to the depth of each quest. So in The Witcher, I played a lot of the game, and I gotta say, a lot of the quests were not the same, which is really nice. That's what you want in a game that's so open and you have so much stuff to do. You don't want to ever run into things where you're constantly doing things over and over again. The same thing, like for instance, Skyrim had a big problem with fetch quests, which is basically go to the dungeon, get the thing, bring it back, boom. In The Witcher, it was like, go investigate this murder, and then you go investigate it, and then you find out that it's a fucking werewolf. Then you find the guy, you talk to him inadvertently, and then you end up finding out that this woman killed the wife, and that's why he's down here. And she did that because she loves him, even though he's a werewolf. And it's a big whole thing, which is crazy. But then again, in Fallout, I got to admit there's some pretty hefty quests in there too. Like for instance, the fact that I had this companion that came across as a douchebag and kind of like a general criminal. But then I started to talk to him and started to get to know him, and then he slowly started to kind of develop, and he told me that he had a son that was dying, and he had this disease that he needed money to get this cure for him. And I was like, damn, you're not a bad guy at all. You're just doing what you got to do, and that changed my perspective massively. Maybe that's the good thing to distinguish it. Maybe I will say Witcher has a really good like in-depth different quests, whereas Fallout has more crazy in-depth characters. Because honestly, I don't know, I felt like in Witcher I didn't really like sink my teeth into a lot of the characters. Geralt I liked, Triss I liked, Gwennifer, oh god, my mouth, Gwennifer I think her name is. I like too, like all of the kind of centered characters I liked, but in Fallout, I'm starting to love these characters, dude, which is surprising because in past Fallout games, didn't really care that much. In Skyrim, I did. Actually, no, not even in Skyrim. I didn't really care too much, but in this game currently, I'm starting to love these fucking characters. Anyways, then again, I'm just a sucker for companions, which you cannot have in that. Another thing, I feel like there's a lot more mechanics in play, a lot more flexibility in Fallout than there is in The Witcher. Like in The Witcher, you get access to a couple different swords that generally have the same type of archetype, It's essentially a sword, may have bends in it, or curved, or gold, etc. But Fallout, you have machine guns, heavy weapons, a fucking nuke launcher, a junk launcher, swords, spears, not spears, I don't think you have spears, bats, the weapon archetype is super different, and that, I would say, Fallout wins pretty heavily on that. And yeah, as of best combat in any game, like combat action or gameplay mechanic, I would say Bloodborne wins pretty fucking highly. That's something that I would definitely put down Bloodborne winning, because Bloodborne's switchable mechanical, I seen a picture of Bloodborne, I'm like, I gotta give that some credit. So anyways, Bloodborne I would definitely say wins when it comes down to combat. The fact that you can switch your weapon around and do 7 different types of moves, and the fact that you can dodge and it's all about timing is just like the epitome of a good combat that works. It has to, because every enemy is pretty godlike, because that combat needs to be refined in order for that to work and for people not to be just absurdly mad. So yeah, anyways, back to Fallout. So again, I would say that I'm not sure, maybe it's just me being like, I'm not biased though, like I generally think The Witcher's a fucking amazing game, and again, both these games are worth $60. That's something that the reviews, and that's what I was talking about reviews, I kind of forgot what I was trying to, my point was, but the fact that these games are like 7 games in one, that's freaking ridiculous. Like the fact that people would hesitate to buy these is shocking to me. And again, like if you're only allowed to get like a game every 2 months, which was my deal when I was growing up with my family, and I would always buy games that were fucking stupid big, like Oblivion, a dog's barking, that's great, Oblivion, Skyrim, Uncharted 2, because you could put glitches in it or cheats, and you could have like a golden gun with infinite ammo. I could play a lot, it was fun. Anyways, Saints Row, GTA, those are all the games that I played because those are the games that I could get countless hours out of, which is why I would choose that. Same thing with Infamous. Any open world game that's massive, I don't think should be on the same level, same playing field as a game that is like Bloodborne. Bloodborne is really long. That's a bad example of Thief or Uncharted, etc. Because they're not in the same archetype at all. It's like two wrestlers going at each other that one dude's 7 weight classes up than the dude at the very bottom, and yet people are saying the guy at the bottom is gonna crush him, despite that's not really even making any sense. That doesn't physically make any sense. So that's why I just kind of get confused with games and stats and reviews. Anyways, I get distracted really easy. Probably noticing that. So yeah, again, like I was saying beforehand, before my mind got taken away by other things, in my opinion, I think Fallout wins very easily. Not because it's a better game, just so much as it does a lot more, which is my only thing. And that's why I judge something. When something they're both very good and both worth your money. But one has a lot more, in my opinion, than the other. I'm not gonna lie, I guess the one thing I will admit that is biased to me is that I do like a futuristic sci-fi Fallout. I like the Fallout world more than I like the Witcher world. I don't mind fantasy, and I actually like the magic part of it. I like that bit of fantasy. But I'm not in it so much as Fallout, where I like the grittiness. I like the rough destruction. I love that. Again, in Fallout, I feel like the characters are a lot more in depth. The voice acting, I fucking love in Fallout, etc. All those types of things. So in my opinion, Fallout is a win in that department. Again, The Witcher, not saying it's a bad game, but to me, that's just, again, I feel like the in-depth requests, the customization options, the actual difference in weapons, not just a different type of sword, or maybe you're just switching it to an axe that generally has the same type of stance as a sword. You know what I mean? That's where I kind of consider there's a mass quantity in the combat. There's tons of randomness that can happen in the game. Like, for instance, a fucking Deathclaw can just jump upon you, and the fact that the looting system is really in depth, like the fact that I can kill a legendary enemy and have an ultra god tier perk puts kind of like a Destiny feel into it, to where I could farm for amazing weapons to make my character the best he could be, is super appealing. And that's why I kind of think, in my personal opinion, Game of the Year goes to Fallout 4. Again, not to say that The Witcher's any less, or that Bloodborne or any of the other nominees are lesser, but just because of the sheer fact that that's just, when I look at the quantity, and not just the quantity, but the quality in each little bit of the quantity, it makes sense to me. I would love to hear what your guys' Game of the Year is. I would completely understand if it's something like Call of Duty. Again, not to say that I'm undermining that, but just to say that my point is that, for instance, Call of Duty, you could play that game for, say, 4 weeks, and then you've generally seen, you probably played all the matches, you probably prestiged at least once, and at this point you're working towards, we could call them collectible-like things, like, getting an awesome gun skin. But to me, I kind of look at it as like a collectible thing, opposed to where Fallout will have an entirely different mission, or a different location that you've never seen before, and also you're doing something that you never experienced before, like, going to save this family. You'll be doing that, opposed to, getting the next gun skin. It's just kind of like a difference in in-depth contents, to where, not to say that this content, Call of Duty, it's not that it's bad, it's just that, frankly enough, when I compare the two, I consider Fallout's to be a grander, different scale than Call of Duty's. Not to say that it's any lesser, but just to say that when you think about content, Call of Duty, a couple new maps. Fallout, a whole new map with a whole, if you're gonna buy DLC, this is what I'm referring to. If you're gonna go to Fallout, you're gonna get a whole new map, whole bunch of different guns, new companions, new characters. It's pretty crazy. You know what I mean? So that's why I look at content and the over amount of something, the massive content in said thing. I may be just talking like a robot now, but anyways, guys, the point that I was trying to end off on is I would love to hear, guys, what your Game of the Years were. I love that shit so much. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always. I love my little community, and I would love to hear what you guys are gonna say. And yeah, bye, guys. Also, a quick little rant in there. So, hopefully, guys, we're okay with that, or dealt with that, whatever. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, as always. My name is Frost, and later, guys.